Area of that, um, well, let me back up. Asmar Incorporated is a holding company for, yes, as I mentioned, Tesfa Asmara and his family. In 1999, MSCI, formerly known as Morgan Stanley Capital International Incorporated, and the S&P Dow Jones indices developed the Global Industry Classification Standard, also known as GICS. They classified 11 sectors of the U.S. stock market, that being communication services, consumer discretionary, consumer staples, energy, financials, healthcare, industrials, information technology, materials, real estate, and utilities. Um, the first subsidiary of Asmar Incorporated in one of those 11 sectors is the information technology sector with our subsidiary Asmar Technologies Incorporated. And a further subsidiary of that is the Claremont Computer Network LLC, which is exactly what it is named after. It is a computer network, um, you know, uh, designed to, with a focus on sharing the computational resources in the Claremont region. Um, and although that's like the scientific and like business definition, I like to view it as an art piece because, you know, kind of the business idea behind this being, as I've seen with hubs elsewhere, would you call it centralization or localization of, computer resources, you know, due to resource constraints, it will naturally be that hubs of compute clusters are created. And so for the Claremont region and me coming along, the natural question was, why wasn't there a focus on a computer cluster before me? And then also, there will be plenty of people after me that are interested in a computer cluster. So that being just anyone could have made this compute cluster had the right things aligned. But when you pose it as an art piece, well, in that way, you can preserve what makes the Claremont Computer Network special. But then I can also encourage other people to, yeah, everyone should create their computer cluster, which is how it should be, yeah. But so with that, as I mentioned, there's the Claremont region. There are 7 schools there with the Claremont colleges. And kind of like, Thanos with I think they're called Infinity Stones. I want to collect each one of the colleges. It is inevitable that the data gravity of the colleges will lead towards such a solution, in my opinion. And we're already starting to see some of that friction with, I believe, like most of the colleges there use Gmail, but Pomona College uses Outlook, and I think that's because Bill Gates' daughter graduated from Pomona College, and so we get to benefit from Microsoft Azure and its products. But I believe that rather than having that be, up to the whims of having, a wealthy family with connections, visit through the school. Perhaps the colleges can join forces to take their, computer or data journey into their own hands, and thereby strengthen their journey or mission. And so, in that way, I hope to open up 49% of the Claremont Computer Network to the Claremont College's faculty, students, families, so that they can we can centralize our cloud storage, potentially even other offerings like Wi-Fi or 5G cellular, and maybe even housing or rental properties across the United States, expanding on from there. But coming back to this idea, I think what will be key is having faculty liaisons at each college to facilitate those conversations or uh, needs from the colleges or those conversations, and show how this can be like financially and administratively the best choice. Um, and now that ties in with our first compute cluster, which was established in this white paper. Here's the Claremont Computer Network, a draft of the logo. We're not currently official affiliates of the Claremont colleges. But this was a white paper I drafted in October 12th, 2024, after communications with my advisor on the Thomas Fuller High Performance Computing Cluster. Now, if you don't know who Thomas Fuller and the background behind his story, I encourage you to research it. Yeah. But anyways, the focus of this paper is establishing, how do we construct our own computer cost effectively, and we whittled it down to these, components such as a CPU, a motherboard, RAM, storage, a graphics card, power supply, and case. And I drafted this in October. And in winter, I actually went and purchased the parts and built my own PC for the first time. And I saw not only the costs, the cost savings, in that I was able to get much more resources for each component for less steep of a price tag than had I got it all pre-built or from like a manufacturer like Apple or Windows. But then this white paper was written October 12th. 5 days later, on October 17th, we drafted the Thomas Fuller High Performance Computing Cluster Programmatic Orchestration, framework. And this is to start to delineate between the services or teams needed to, facilitate such a, compute cluster. And that, yes, we will have some on-hand facilities or requirements, but ideally the cluster could be configured, worked on, from remotely for the most part, and connected to. And so in here we draft a white paper of the software stack, or just kind of imagine like what does the infrastructure look like. And so here we have like a user who SSHs onto their username at fuller.pomona.edu at port 22. It hits our domain name servers, establishing a TCP connection with the IPv4 or IPv6 of address of our machine. Here I model it with a 2012 Mac Mini because that was just what I was able to scrap, hunting for computers on Craigslist. I eventually had to stop that activity because my mother did not like the idea of me visiting people's houses under the allure of free or cheap old computers. So I got a 2012 Mac Mini and a 2009 Mac Mini, both operating as well as a monitor, keyboard, mice, and a bunch of other electronic waste that I found a lot of use from. But anyways, on that Mac Mini, I installed an Ubuntu operating system and created a virtual machine entitled Fuller, after the Thomas Fuller High Performance Computing Cluster. And on that virtual machine, created a Docker container where I installed SageMath. The purpose being, the first use case for a high-performance computing cluster, of course, is to apply it to algebraic geometry and number theory. What I like about algebraic geometry and number theory, besides the pretty pictures and relationship to back to algebra, is how the questions can be stated simply, and as of lately, we've gotten a lot more computational resources or tools to throw at those questions, those long-standing questions. Um, and this is how I'd like to spend my time, rather than necessarily, chasing after AI or large language models. Um, yes, but yeah, thank you for your time. This was just supposed to be a quick overview of, you know, work done up until this next phase we're about to head into of the Claremont Computer Network, the Thomas Fuller High Performance Compute Cluster, and many other future offerings. Thank you for your time.